أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بفضل الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله اللهم لعنهم جميعا ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. We spoke previously about the intention of fasting, and we said that the intention must be perpetual. That means that the intention must be throughout the fast. That at any point during the day, if I decide that I'm not fasting, my fast is broken. This does not mean I can gorge myself on a banquet. That means that I have to hold out until the time where I break my fast. But this day, I have to repeat because I've broken my fast. Now, this does not mean if I desire to eat. See, sometimes you say, yes, I'd like to eat something, but in your head you are fasting. So any point where you say, that's it, I'm not fasting. Because you can't go back and forth once the Fajr has come or has transpired. Now, this doesn't get taken into account when I have an uncertainty about whether my fast is correct or not. See, for example, sometimes someone may wake up at 10 in the morning, 11 in the morning, and they've woken up, they've had a wet dream, they're in the state of janaba. And then they say to themselves, am I still fasting or am I not? Because they're in that state does not mean that their fast is broken, because they're doubting they're doubting the validity of their fast. The fact that they doubt the validity of their fast and they want to ask in order to gain a response, once this response has been given, then they continue with their fast. And this doubt that arose doesn't carry any weight in the matter of your intention being broken. As we mentioned at the beginning of this month, that the intention must be before the Fajr. That I must have an intention before the Fajr that I'm fasting. As for those that have made the intention for the entire month, that is a different story. However, there are exceptions. Exceptions for someone that is traveling. If I'm traveling to another place, say I'm traveling from here to Brisbane. I arrive in Brisbane and it's 11 a.m. and I have not eaten or drank or performed any of the other actions that would break my fast. I may, and I'm also, no, that's the first condition. I haven't done anything that will break my fast. Also, the second condition, I am muqim in Brisbane, which means I will be there for 10 or more days. I'm not there for 3 days. 10 or more days, then I may make an intention, even though it's 11 a.m., even though it's 1 hour before the meridian or the zawal or the time of dhuhr, I may make an intention to fast the month. Likewise for the one that is returning. So you're returning from a safar. You arrive in Sydney, and it's the same time, 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m. And I haven't done anything that would break my fast. And I'm returning to my home, so I don't have to be muqim. This is my residence. Then I can make the intention to fast then before that time. This is the only time that you can do that before the Dhuhr with these conditions. Now, we had at the beginning of the month, we had a day, and we mentioned about this, the fiasco that we spoke about before, the Thursday fiasco that we had where everyone did not know whether it was the first of Ramadan or not. Now, here's the issue here. This day is mentioned in the hadith. There's a lot of narrations that talk about Yawm al-Shak. And the Al-A'imma alayhum as-salam used to mention that, you know, you just read a tradition where one of the Imams said that my father would fast on the day of Shak. But they don't make this an obligation. See, because we have a law when it comes to jurisprudence to follow the previous status. So the previous status is that it's Sha'ban. Is it obligatory upon you to fast in Sha'ban? No. So I don't have to fast in Sha'ban until I've gained certitude that it is Ramadan. But it's better to fast, but you don't have to. And if I did fast, whether I fasted it as being a qada or whether I fast as a mustahab, and it turns out to be a day of Shahr Ramadan, it gets ticked off as Shahr Ramadan. But if I did not fast on that day, and it turns out to be a day of Shahr Ramadan, I have to do the qada. And that's it. No expiation at all. I don't need to pay anything, because Allah Azza wa Jal is not going to try you for something that you didn't have knowledge of. Likewise, if you want to take a look at when we make an intention, we fast Shahr Ramadan because it's wajib. We mentioned the different types of fasts. There's wajib, we said there's makruh fast, there's mustahab fast, there's haram fast. The wajib fast here, I have to know that I'm fasting Shahr Ramadan, it's a wajib fast. There is an exemption. Is, say for example, someone's a newbie, someone's new to fasting, someone's new to religion, not of understanding. If they haven't mentioned in the intention that this isn't obligatory, their fast is still sound. Or like a convert that's moved to the religion, their fast is still sound and acceptable. So we move on to our story. Firstly, sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. This being the third and final part of the chief's wife. And we find that after she has shown the women around her that they too are susceptible to committing this sin, but now, like we say, أخذت روح, you know, everyone's on her side now. She said, all right, I'm not on this alone. So she says, all right, now it's moved on to the next step. Then she says, وَلَئِن لَمْ يَفْعَلْ مَا آمُرُهُ لَيُسْجَنَنَّ وَلَيَكُونَنْ مِنَ الصَّاغِرِينَ. If he does not do now what I command him to do, I will have him incarcerated, I'll have him imprisoned, I'll have him in a saghirin, I'll have him debased, put down in the matter where he is belittled before the people. Now we come to a point here where we have to consider when someone is given a choice. There are times in your life where you are given a choice to make. And there are various choices put before you. Many times people will call me and say, listen, I have a job, and this job requires me to shake the hands of women or the opposite gender. And if I don't, I will lose my job. So the question here is, will you lose your job and starve to death and die? Or will you lose your job and need to find another job? This is a question. This is where the problem comes in. See, some people, they don't look at this. What is the other option? Is the other option that if I lose this job, they'll say you're useless to us, they'll take me to the Gap and throw me off? No. You lose the job, you apply for another job. You're in a country where there's an abundance of work. You take a look at the clothing people wear, the items people are wearing, the cars people are driving. There's abundance in this country. There is wealth in this country. I remember for Shahr Ramadan, I told you if you want to compare this Western country, go compare Australia to New Zealand, compare it to Great Britain, and compare it to the United States. This is a better country than those other three. Auckland, there's not much employment in New Zealand. Likewise in Great Britain. In the United States, I told you, between 45 to 50 million people are below the poverty line. We live in a really good country. There is opportunities for employment. So, generally you are free to make a choice. But it's different when it comes to an ultimatum by someone that has power. See, sometimes the ultimatum that you are given is confined to belonging. And I'll explain what I'm trying to... Like, for example, if you want to enter this... and so, for example, you want to enter a mausoleum. You're going to the ziyarah of Ahad al-A'imma alayhim salam. For example, if you want to visit the shrine of Al-Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida, salawatullah alayh, or Sayyid al-Ma'suma, salawatullah alayha, if you want to visit either of them, they make you wear chador. They'll give you, the females, they give you, not for the men, obviously. Now, we haven't got to cross-dressing there yet. And I say yet because you don't know what's happening in the world these days. So anyway, so they give you a chador and force you to wear this. Are you forced to wear the chador? No. If you want to visit the shrine, you must wear it. So you got the option of saying, I don't want to go. They don't follow you and say you have to wear it now. Even here, if you want to join certain clubs or become a member of something that you have, you are given an ultimatum, but your option is, I don't have to do this. And you always can walk in reverse. But sometimes there are ultimatums where there is no other choice. There's no third road. And this is what happened with Al-Imam Abu Abdullah Al-Hussein. When Imam Hussein alayhi salam was given an ultimatum, he was told either you give allegiance to Yazid, you accept. When we say give allegiance, a lot of people don't understand what the word bay'ah means. Bay'ah is basically, if you even look at the way allegiance is given, allegiance is not given by you saying, I accept you as my. Your hand, when you hand it in allegiance, is at the bottom, and the Khalif's hand comes on top. So when you give allegiance, you say that he is my guardian, he is above me, I am below him. So I give him command over me. Not only that, this Khalif is my proxy, my medium between me and God. He is my guardian and authority from Allah Azza wa Jal. So Imam Hussein alayhi salam was given this ultimatum, that either you give allegiance or you die. There's no other choice. And this is what he says when he makes that statement that up till today, many people echo this statement. When he says, Ala wa inna ad-da'i ibn ad-da'i. And these are very important words. When the Imam says that ad-da'i, when we say ad-da'i means the claimant. What is he claiming? He's talking about Ubaydullah ibn Marjan or ibn Ziyad. Ubaydullah claims that Ziyad is his father. This is what he's telling you. This guy doesn't even know who his father is. And the guy that he claims to be his father, Ziyad, who was known as Ziyad ibn Abi, also does not know who his father is. The claimant, the son of the claimant, the one that claims to know who his father is, and the one he has taken as a father also does not know who his father is. It's a long story, and obviously you will hear these when you listen to the Majalis al-Muharram. قَدْ رَكَزَ بَيْنَ اثْنَتَيْنِ, that he has given me an ultimatum of two. بَيْنَ السِّلَّةِ, which means to unsheath your sword, means to fight. وَالذِّلَّةِ, or to be humiliated, because Imam Hussein alayhi salam considers giving allegiance to Yazid as humiliation, and so does Allah, and so does His Messenger, and so do the believers. Everyone considers giving allegiance to a despot as what? As degrading. Sorry, I forgot to say, Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The first night I don't silence it, and I usually I don't get phone calls. SubhanAllah, someone must have seen me and said, let's have a go at him this time. But anyway, so both options are better, but one's going to leave you with your dignity. One's going to leave you with some dignity. So what was the ultimatum given to Yusuf ala nabina wa ali wa alayhi afdal salatu wa salam? Either you fornicate, wal-iyadu billah, or you go to prison. And what does he say? قال رب السجن أحب إلي مما يدعونني إليه. That he does not say, I love prison. Don't get it wrong. He says, أحب. That in other words, prison is preferable for me than to commit this travesty. I would rather go to jail. And people these days, they'll commit anything. People will delay their prayers and pray qadha just not to lose their jobs. Nabi Yusuf alayhi salam was willing to go to prison, incarceration, with an accusation that is so grand, just so that he does not commit this sin, to abstain from the sin. So by being given this ultimatum, he decided to choose what? He decided to choose what would keep him away from committing the sin, rather than falling into sin and losing this closeness and nearness and proximity that he has to Allah Azza wa Jal. But what happened to Zulaykha here? Her transgression sent her into destitution. What does that mean? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam says, Az-zina yurithul faqr. The adultery or fornication, when you say yurithu, it basically bequeaths, if you want to say, destitution or poverty. You become poor. She did not commit adultery, but because she was set on this road, she was married to this chief. And while she was married to this chief, and she lived with this chief, and she was living in a great position, a grand position, when the chief died, she became elderly because Nabi Yusuf remained in prison for a while, and she became impoverished to the point she became in need. That she reached the point where she had become in need and she wanted help from the people. So she went to some of her friends and asked for help. Some of her friends said, listen, the new chief, the new Aziz is Yusuf. Go ask from him and he will help you. He is known to be a righteous man. Obviously there were some naysayers around and said, listen, you don't want to go there because between you and him, for God's sake, he got sent to jail because of you. So how could you return to him? Now what did she say to them? She said to them about Yusuf alayhi salam, she said, La akhafu man yakhafu Allah. And this is something very important. That if you deal with someone, she says, I do not fear anyone that fears God. So anyone that fears God, fears the day of judgment, you are not, and you should not be afraid of them. Why? Because if you recall God's name in front of them, they stop. I mentioned this several weeks ago for those that were present, that a mu'min, if someone comes up to you and says, forgive me for the sake of God, that should be enough for you to stop. You hear the name of God. For the sake of God, it should be enough for you to stop. If someone asks you in this manner, so someone that thinks of God, someone that remembers God, someone that's associated in the manner of being godly, she said, how can you fear such a person? So as the convoy of Yusuf alayhi salam came past, she stopped before the convoy. And then she declared to Yusuf, she said, Subhana man ja'ala al-muluka bil-ma'asiyati abida wa ja'ala al-abida bil-ta'ati muluka. See, she said, glory be to the one that made the, when you say muluka, does not mean in the sense only kings, anyone of a position of rulership and power. She says, glory be to the one that made those in power become slaves due to transgression. If you want to see this, how often? The Arab Spring was enough for you to see this. You know, you remembered Gaddafi in his position and talking about his green book and going to his parties with Silvio Berlusconi and enjoying his life, and then after, at the end of his life, he was humiliated by being impaled with a pole before he was killed. And into Jahannam wa bi'sa al-masir. Likewise with Saddam. And all these people, you saw where they rose and they fell. It's not something that you're not familiar with. This is what happens. So she said, a transgression causes these rulers and these kings to fall. Glory be to the one that has given power and taken power and has given rulership to the slaves through their obedience. So Yusuf alayhi salam's actions had affected her. Like when you hear the story of Al-Imam Musa ibn Ja'far salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, where Harun wants to entice him by placing a licentious woman in the prison cell with him, and then when they return, they find her praying with the Imam. Rather than enticing the Imam the other way around. Through their actions, they bring them towards God. So anyway, Yusuf alayhi salam asked her if she was who she is. Because she's old now. She says, are you who I think you are? And she responded in the positive that she is. And now the situation has changed. The one that has given him the ultimatum is now at his mercy. When you're in a position of power, you need to understand something. You are in a position of power now. One day you will be at the mercy of someone else. And the hadith says, اذكر عند المقدرة قدرة الله عليك. That when you are in a position of power or in a position of ability, remember when God will, or where God, not when, because God always has ability, where God has ability over you at all times. If you read the epistle of Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi to Malik al-Ashtar Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhi, if you read the epistle, when he reads to him, he says, when you deal with the people, deal with them like you want God to deal with you on the day of judgment. Do you imagine that? How do you want God to deal with you on the day of judgment? And this is where you have the ability. You need to show what? That you are a benign ruler, a benevolent ruler, a merciful ruler. And obviously, as the hadith says, وَالْعَفْوَ عَنْدَ الْمَقْدِرَةِ. You know, sometimes someone says, look, the government robbed me, but I forgive them. What are you going to do about it? Of course you're going to forgive them. What are you going to do about it? You know, what are you going to release? What arsenal? You and your children will walk out in the street and go to war with them? They'll step on you. So you say, all right, you know, we'll just let that one go. Where you have power, and once again the disclaimer for those that have power in their homes, not for the poor unfortunate souls like myself, but everyone that has power in their home, where they have actual ability over their wife and kids, where they show the mercy at this point. that they have the ability to do something. I have the ability to beat my child when he does something wrong, where I prevent myself from beating my child. So Yusuf is now in the position of rulership. He is a ruler. So what does he do? He knows that she fancied him at first. And he knows that she's turned back to God. So then he says to her, would you marry me? She's old now. And she says, Yusuf, are you mocking me? My old age, I've lost this beauty and this glamour that I had before, which you weren't enticed by. What would make you take me at an old age? Not only had he forgiven her, he wanted to fulfill what she wanted. Now here's a thing that I need to understand. I need you to understand that he denied mocking her, and he showed he was serious, so he married her. But I need to take a look at what? The fact that she had mitigating elements surrounding her actions. It's not like she acted out of being devious. We mentioned before that her husband was impotent. I actually had a bit of a research today. I wanted to find out what biblical historians say about this. And the word that they use in Aramaic for all these rulers that were close to the king, the pharaohs, this meant, the term that they actually use in Aramaic was given also in reference to the eunuchs. And what is a eunuch? A eunuch was basically a man that was placed to look after women. In order for him not to be a man while he's around these women, they would castrate him. You know, have you ever seen those little rubber rings that they use on the sheep? Use your imagination. This is what they would do to them. So there's a possibility that this man, using the Aramaic terminology that's provided by biblical historians, because he's mentioned as Potiphar, that he was a eunuch. So firstly, her husband was a eunuch, and she was extremely attractive. And she says to Yusuf, your beauty and my beauty, like everyone desires her, that also gives you a lot of confidence. You know, when people think you're good looking, that also gives a person a lot of confidence. That I can have anyone I want. And Yusuf being extremely attractive, and the fact her husband was a no-show, put her in a position where she would fall to committing this sin. This is unlike the women of today that commit such a sin. A woman of today that is married, those women that are married and have a husband that's peaked like an Arabian stallion, and she peaked as in P-I-Q, U-E-D, not peaked as in the other one, that they showed interest. Okay? That this person that they do not perform for, or they neglect, and instead then commit a sin like this sin. Al-Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamu alayh, when he mentions three people or three types of persons that God, Allah Azza wa Jal, will not even speak to on the Day of Judgment, one of them is a woman that is married and that commits adultery. This person has no word with God because she is married. She's not someone that has been neglected, which is different here. In another hadith, عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم, he says, اشتد غضب الله على امرأة ذات بعل. That imra'ah, that's muhsan, a woman that is married, that Allah's anger, Allah's wrath increases on a woman. Forget adultery here. ذات بعل ملأت عينها من غير زوجها. That Allah's anger increases on a woman that is married, that has eyes for other than her husband, that wants other than her husband, before she's even entered that realm. Before she's walked towards that realm or moved into that direction, Allah's wrath has become great upon her. Unlike the case which we mentioned with Zulaykha, where she had mitigating circumstances. There were things that caused her to move in this direction, and thus she turned back and she was forgiven. So although we perceive her in the story to be someone of bad character from the story, we have to understand that she turned back. She made amends, and this is the month for you to turn back from, and me, first and foremost, to turn back from our actions and make amends. This is the month for us to straighten our pact with Allah Azza wa Jal, the pact that Samahat al-Sheikh had mentioned that we had made in Alam al-Dar, the covenant we have made with God. We have to make amends with this covenant in this month. Allah has given us opportunity. We are only in the first, you could say, quarter or fifth of this month. We are not that far in. So we have to start making amends in this month, and we still have the blessings of Laylatul Qadr. But you have this entire month. Don't wait till a night after. Start from now. And this is why I read this dua every night. So inshallah, while we read it, Allah Azza wa Jal, that there's one person amongst us, Allah yaj'alkum min as-salihin, but there's one person that's really near to God, and his dua encompasses us all, that we are all covered by this person's dua. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. أعوذ بجلال وجهك أن ينقضي عني شهر رمضان أو يطلع الفجر من ليلتي هذه ولك قبلي تبعة أو ذنب تعذبني عليه وصل اللهم على محمد وآله الطاهرين.